Well, this month, although if you look, it's February, but it looks more like March already. But this month we're going to talk about some things out on the clearing landscape that I don't think I've talked about before, at least most of them. And some of them have been here for a long time, and we're starting with what's now a part of our trail system, but you can see it's wider right here. We're just off the northeast corner of the Homestead Meadow on this path to the inner meadow, which is east of the Homestead Meadow. But you see it's wider here, and this particular path has actually had 3 lives that we know of. First, it was a logging road back in the logging days in the late 1800s. This was one of the logging roads through the property when they were logging off Door County. And then after those days were done and the farmers moved in to farm the land, it became a tractor path, probably a horse path at first, and then a tractor path later when tractors came in. And since Jensen's time, it has been part of our trail system. And it starts out, again, at the northeast corner of the Homestead Meadow, goes east into the hay meadow, and then hooks off to the north all the way to the exit road. We don't know where it all went originally back in the old days, but this is a remnant of those logging days and then farm days at the clearing. Right along this path, logging road / tractor path / hiking trail, is my favorite stone pile in the whole world, right along the south edge of it. And this has been here long enough to grow some pretty good sized trees in it. So this is a testimonial to the farm days at the clearing back in the 1880s, 90s, into the first part of the 20th century. And this represents a whole lot of rock picking over quite a few years. And for all that work, the farming only lasted here a few decades. The land, most of the land on the west edge of the Door Peninsula is pretty thin soil, so it's pretty poor farmland. So farming didn't last here. And when Jensen bought the first part of the property in 1919, it was already abandoned farm. But this is this wonderful old stone pile. It's been here 130, 40 years probably. So this path ends up at the inner meadow. We're just at the very northwest corner of the inner meadow, and it continues on east here for another 50, 60 yards. Then it hooks off to the north, and it's really just a single path then. From what we know, it was a logging road there too, but that's grown over the years. But when you get further north past the utility corridor, which we'll see in a little while, just east of the Players Green, that outdoor amphitheater, this path to the east of the Players Green is wide again. Not this wide, but you can see it was something else at one time. So this is, except for the escarpment path, the path that runs right along the top of the edge of the escarpment, which is the oldest human-made feature on this property. Probably goes back at least several thousand years to Native people would have walked that edge for sure. This is post-European settlement, the oldest human-made feature on the property, this logging road that became a farm lane, that became part of our hiking trail system. I've talked about our series of meadows at the clearing before, like the big Homestead Meadow. We just saw part of the inner meadow, and then there are these 2 small meadows between buildings and the edge of the escarpment, the Lodge Meadow, and this is the Schoolhouse Meadow, these narrow, long meadows that Jensen would have cut out of the woods back in the 1920s, so that you get a view from, in this case, the schoolhouse down to the water. The lodge meadow at one time in its life was actually a mowed lawn, but this is so rough with so many rocks here, this was never mowed. And because it wants to become woods, all these meadows in Door County want to become woods. That's what they want to succeed to. In most cases, a northern hardwood forest, sugar maple, beech, hemlock, basswood. You have to keep the trees out of these. So every now and then we have to come in and cut the small trees out so they don't become big trees and block the view. At the bottom of the meadow here, well, I should also mention the tall window that you see at the end of our tall, steep buildings, the schoolhouse, the lodge, the Jensen Center, where Jensen wanted people to be able to see from inside earth, water, and sky all in the same view. And this is a really good example here at the schoolhouse. Just a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, we started adding these rustic handrails made by James Visti, one of our blacksmith instructors, has a forge in Sturgeon Bay. He started putting these in various difficult to navigate spots like this one, and they really fit our landscape beautifully, and they work really well, very sturdy. And then of course beyond we have these little windows pruned out in a couple places here so you can get a glimpse of the water and the setting sun beyond. So the schoolhouse meadow. Anybody who's driven through the clearing knows that we have these wonderful curvy roads. The entrance road to the property, as far as we know, that's the old farm road into the property from back in the 1880s, 90s, maybe even from logging days before that. But this road, this is the exit road. That's from the school. It was originally the schoolhouse road that you came in on what is now our exit and drove down to the schoolhouse and then back the same way. The Farm Bureau in the 50s sometime connected the entrance road to the schoolhouse road. So we had this one long one-way loop through the property. So this is the exit road with one of our sharp curves that Jensen would have laid this out. He wanted these curvy roads. In fact, although some people say he wasn't involved, we think he was. A lot of people think he was involved in that, laying out that road from Gills Rock to Northport, their famous, iconic Door County curvy road on the way to the ferry in Northport. And he did the same thing here. He probably was trying to save the best trees at the time too, but he wanted people to slow down and enjoy the drive through the property. Remember my first time through when I was interviewing for the job, and I drove through, I couldn't believe it was only 128 acres. It felt much larger because you had to drive slowly because of these curvy roads. So the clearing exit road, the curvy road. Okay, we're a little bit further down the exit road now to our utility corridor that starts at the very northeast corner of the property and runs west and then a little bit southwest all the way to campus and even beyond campus down to the workshop and forge area. So this was put in 1935 or so, somewhere in there, when Jensen started the school and realized he had to have electricity down here. So he laid out from legend has it, he laid out the utility corridor the same way he laid out paths and roads, all curving. And when Wisconsin Public Service rep came to discuss the project with him, they said, it's got to be straight or you don't get one. So this is in contrast to Jensen loving everything curving, roads and paths. He's got a straight shot utility corridor, but that's the way it had to be done. And I'm shocked. When I came here, I thought, because my father worked for Wisconsin Public Service for 40-some years, he was a lineman, and I know a little bit about power outages because he had to go take care of those. And when I saw this, I thought there must be a power outage once a month at the clearing because this all runs through trees. And it's surprising, they're just a couple a year, and they're usually only 3 or 4 hours. I should probably knock on wood. Is there any wood around here to knock on? Anyway, our utility corridor. Now we're at the end of the exit road, just about to Garrett Bay Road, in what we call, to this day, still call the hay meadow. Clearly, no one's making hay here anymore. It's been at least probably 50 years since they baled hay in here, maybe even longer. And since then, it's not been mowed. It's just, we're letting Mother Nature take this back. It's primarily now old field common juniper, this low evergreen shrub. But there are some trees coming in here and there. This wants to become a sugar maple beech forest ultimately. But we have some arborvitae or white cedar in here. Quite a few of the smaller deciduous trees in here, there's one right over here, are white ash, and that's unfortunate because when they get old enough, they're gonna probably succumb to emerald ash borer. But there are some other things coming up in here too. It takes a while to go from an old field or pasture to a mature forest, a couple hundred years. So this is the early stages of plant succession from this former hay meadow to ultimately a maple beech forest someday.